Well, hey there, and good morning to you. Got a great series here kicking off today, and I'll be here all week at 11 a.m. So please do share this wherever you're joining me, whether it's on LinkedIn Live, my YouTube channel, or over on my Facebook. Please do like, comment, share with all your friends, all that kind of fun stuff. Well, today and through the whole week, we're going to look at every single aspect of job search and what you can do to really change the equation to be to your benefit. We're entering the fall hiring season right now, so there's a lot of activity. It's a great time to be out there and looking around. So let's think about how we're going to really improve every aspect of what we can improve in our job search. And that means making sure our story is up to date in the best way possible on our resume. That also means tomorrow's lecture, which is all about LinkedIn and how you're going to really make that a really three-dimensional sales brochure that is going to really sing your praises, also help you kick the competitor to the curb. We're going to follow that, of course, with our social media marketing for job search on LinkedIn using our profile. Tell you all about that. Begin to wrap up the live lecture series on Thursday with my interview intervention lecture. That's all the secrets a recruiter uses to make their candidate be the standout, but you can use these secrets for yourself. And then, of course, on Friday, we have a very special live Q&A for Ask Self Recruiter. If you are not getting your job search questions answered, send them in. Send them in to ask@selfrecruiter.com. That's ask@selfrecruiter.com. All the best ones are always included. So today, resume renovation. Let me get a little sip. You know, when I named this lecture, lots of other people try to help people in the way I help people and talk about the subjects that I talk about. And so when I thought, how do I make my presentation just a little bit different, besides, of course, having very unique content? And that is really the approach to the resume. This is not a little bit of wallpaper, a little bit of paint, a little bit of touch up, essentially. This is let's break it down to the studs and reimagine how we tell a career story. Because in my view, your resume should simply be the essence and value of your career on a single page in a way that then will make them, want to speak with you, want to reach out to you, want to engage you. So think about all those different things that you might use, and we'll teach you how to solve those things. Now, if we're going to solve all the issues that plague resumes, the most obvious one is the format that we see, and we're going to give you a lot of extensive ideas of what to do with the format to make it really work without having to physically read it the old-fashioned way. But that also requires a reworking of the entire way that we communicate the story. So we're going to start really with the story itself, because most of us, we've been so emotionally close to that journey, very difficult for us to retell our story in a new way. It's also why I work with so many clients that have a difficulty doing it themselves. But my gosh, I care deeply, but I'm not emotionally attached to their background, and I can see it in a very, very different way. We need to show that we're going to be effective in what we do. But in today's world, we also have to show that we can do that remotely, because we just don't know what's ahead. As much as back to the office stuff is going on, there's certainly a lot of work from home still happening as well. So if you haven't worked remotely in the past, you're going to need to show that. And if you don't have actual remote work to show, then you have to think of different aspects of what you may have done that illustrate that you can be effective at a distance. I don't have to read all of these things here, but you can see them here. All of these things are a way to do that. Or maybe you've interacted with people either on your team or they interacted with your team, and you've done conferences or conference calls or webinars. All of those are examples of how you can be effective in a remote world. This requires a paradigm shift compared to what we've done in the past. We very likely have to go back to every stage of our career, rethink what we were doing, and retell it in a still very truthful but slightly different way that gets all that benefit for today's world, so they can see that. If you haven't seen me before, John Crant, author, career coach, and speaker, resume and LinkedIn guru as well. So if your career story is really suffering from bad storytelling, and virtually everybody suffers from bad storytelling, they just can't seem to tell the story in the best way possible. you know who to reach out and work with. A little bit more of my background, 7 or 8 years in outside recruiting. That's 3 different disciplines on a desk as a traditional headhunter. 2 of those done as national market, simply means never met anyone, never met a manager, never met a candidate, everything over the phone, lots of placements. Then, of course, I did a local market Manhattan role as a recruiter, and suddenly I had to meet everyone, and it does change things. Of course, ended up being VP over all 100 offices before moving out to do what I do now, and that is work with clients directly to help them raise their game and really change how they present their career story across resume, LinkedIn, interviewing, even their cover letter, all of those things. By the way, a lot of the secrets, not every secret, but a lot of the secrets are all in my self-recruiter book, really about changing the rules that you never agreed to in the first place. It's a wonderful roadmap, essentially, of how to run your job search, how to overcome obstacles, how to renegotiate the wrong offer when you get it, because that happens sometimes too. All of that is in there, all the secrets from my time on a desk as a recruiter. By the way, you can get that over my self-recruiter website, also over on Amazon quite easily. A few more resources to help you, and this one will help back up what I teach you today, how to not let your resume become resume roadkill. These are articles over on my LinkedIn. Just go to my LinkedIn, click on my articles, and you'll see a number of articles that will help you in different challenges that you're having. Now, tomorrow's lecture is all about LinkedIn, but there's also a very special version of my LinkedIn lecture sitting right on my self-recruiter website. It's about halfway down the page. You can see me large, see the slide large. Really, you can use it as a start and stop tutorial as you improve your LinkedIn profile. It'll help you. Let's get into today. The umbrella across all of my lectures is how do you become this self-recruiter, this one great recruiter that looks after one amazing candidate, which of course is you. And that means you have to be the cheerleader, the strategist, the roadmapper for conversation, and the person that picks yourself up by those bootstraps and dusts yourself off when needed. Primarily, that means we're going to network in a very different way. And that means, yes, LinkedIn. So tune in for tomorrow's lecture. Lots of secrets there. But also it means keeping one eye on the toughest competitor imaginable. Those 4, 5, or 6 people that you saw they're going for the job, scare you out of applying for that job. Those scary people, those seemingly perfect people, I'm not sure if I've really met one. We all like to think we may be perfect, but we're all human beings. We are defective by nature. So these perfect people, they suffer from something very special called ego and arrogance, and then they forget to prepare. So with a little bit of strategy, a little bit of forethought, a little bit of planning, you can outmaneuver them very quickly, cut them off right at the knees. And that's what I'll teach you how to do through the whole series. Please tune in all week. So we'd all like to see the job, go after the job, get the job. My gosh, if it was only that easy. But everyone's sitting home doing the same thing you're doing, hitting that darn button, which almost never says apply, almost always says submit. All capital letters until we're so submissive. It's like a Friday night wait for that phone to ring. It's going to ring. It's going to ring. It'll be a telemarketer when it does. This is a rut that we have to get ourselves out of. If we just keep doing the same thing over and over, I think you understand how you're going to feel, and that's going to leave you in a very bad place. Whatever got you to today's emotional state, whether it was the continued treatment at work, maybe a few wrong turns in your career, whatever it might have been, maybe a downturn in sales and you're the salesperson, well, whatever it is, we have to get over it. Does not mean that we don't need to assess and fix and correct, absolutely. But then we have to put that up on the shelf and quit staring in that rear view mirror of disappointment and look ahead to our next opportunity. We're going to have to think in terms of the usual customer expected, but much more in the unusual, unconventional, unexpected. It's our job to be persuasive. It's not our job to jiggle the cup in our hand with a coin in it, drawing attention. No, I hope something comes my way. Let's talk about resume for a second. You know, we're in a digital world, so the first question tends to be, is a resume still important? Does a resume still matter? Do I have to have a resume? Only if you'd like to be hired. Yes, you have to have a resume. Resume tends to be the first point of contact. Not necessarily. Sometimes it's LinkedIn and a great LinkedIn profile. And if you're using social media marketing on LinkedIn with a great LinkedIn profile drawing people to you, sure, your LinkedIn might catch their attention first. But in most cases, it still tends to be the resume. That's why the resume matters. It's also the first step in you beginning to take control of the discussion about your career and how people think of you and see you. But if you're going to solve this real challenge here, you really have to understand what that challenge really is. So let's open the curtain, let's look behind it, and let's see what scary stuff is there. Let's look at it by the actual numbers. So if this is a decent job that you're going after, that's 1,000 to 2,000 resumes being sent in. I hope you heard that, right? 1,000, 2,000 resumes being sent in. That does not mean 1,000 to 2,000 qualified candidates. You're a qualified candidate? Fantastic. 95% of these resumes are not right for this job. Why are they even here? I can certainly tell you. They get excited seeing this great job and they go, oh, they have that great job. They must have a wonderful job just around that would fit me. They should see my background. They'll want to hire me. And that clogs the entire system for every job. So that's 1,000 to 2,000 resumes. Your resume, if you're right, is all mixed into this, but it's like snow blindness or resume blindness, few dozen, few hundred. I can't tell anybody apart. Why is one better than the other? I just don't know. But we're stuck in a world today with another problem. No one will read. You know, someone can ask me a question over email. I can send them back 2 sentences, which make a very, very small paragraph. Answers right in the middle of it, and they'll ask me again. I'm not faulting anyone. That's the state of the world. No one will read anything. So if you understand no one will read, how are they going to read 1,000 emails, 1,000 cover letters, 1,000 resumes, and do all of their normal work? I don't really know how they're going to be able to do that. That's not really possible. So, but the problem here is we're still not looking at the full challenge. Because if we're dealing with a recruiter, and that's whether it's an internal or external recruiter, doesn't really matter. If their title is recruiter, they tend to work on 10 open jobs at the same time. So we're not talking 1,000. We're talking 10,000 emails, 10,000 resumes, 10,000 cover letters. Who can read any of that? No one. Which means you're now down to what? Relying on that applicant tracking system. Tag your ear, your it, like those little wildlife out in the woods with the ear tag. So, you know, the problem with this whole scenario, from my view, is the vast majority of job seekers are actually sending their resume to the wrong people. They're sending their resume to the HR department, and the HR department only hires one type of person, HR people. For the rest of the company, that's not who they hire. They facilitate that process, kind of like a kind of mail sorter type person, but they're not the decision maker. And yet they have this thing called a job posting. Now I call it something different. I call it the list of the irrelevance, because that's a new word with a T and an S on the end, because it's a laundry list of irrelevant things to the day-to-day of this job. Oh, tangentially connected. I get it. But that's not a picture of the day-to-day of this job. And now it's down to these HR folks who don't really understand my job to compare me to this irrelevant checkbox list. I begin to see what the problem is here, right? If you were able to find the courage to get yourself to even just 90 seconds of time in front of the decision maker, they'd know exactly why you're right for this job or not. Can't talk yourself into a job you're not right for. So this is a huge problem that we have to solve. Now, part of it we're going to solve in what we do to the resume, because we have mere seconds for that interest to go, oh, get them in here, get them on the phone. I need to speak with them. There's something here. So challenge in getting to that stage. Well, one of the steps, of course, is we try to be cookie cutter perfect. Oh, I'll just be cookie cutter perfect. I'll just be perfect. I'll just perfect. Great. Perfect. I'll take number three. Number three, I'm paying you less. No, you don't want less. Okay. Number four, number two, doesn't matter. I'm taking any one of you. I'm paying you less. I think we see the problem with being cookie cutter perfect interchangeable. So your challenge in presenting yourself, your career, and your expertise is to, yes, accomplish the cookie cutter interchangeable, but somehow still being exceptional, different, special. You have to step out of line. That's how you get the right carved out responsibilities that's right for you, and the right compensation package that's going to be right for you. So this is 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 iterations to get to the right resume. I don't want to set the expectation that you're going to spend 2 hours after this lecture, do a little work and have your new resume. You'll have your first iteration of your new resume. But just as I do with my clients, it may take 4, 5, 6 iterations to get to the best version. If you stop too early, it's not nearly as effective. Do the work and work your way through every cycle, and I'll teach you every cycle here. Small changes change perception. We have to think about that. So let's think about that in terms of our story. Now, again, story gets a little bit of a bad rap because we think of something made up. That's not at all what I mean. I mean, I can tell you the same story that's very factual and dull, or I can tell you something interesting story. You know, that was so interesting when I got the call from the CEO. And suddenly the same story is much more interesting. What you likely have to do is do what I do with my clients. When I'm reinventing someone's resume or reinventing someone's LinkedIn profile, we begin with about a 90-minute deep dive interview. It's a closed for inventory session. I have to discover all the pieces of story under the bed, in the closet, under the rock, every little piece of story that somehow slipped away, got put up on the shelf because we never wanted to see it again. You have to capture all that content again. And then you have to go back through with a highlighter, maybe very, very stingy with that highlighter. What is resume worthy? Only the ruby, diamond, emerald, drop of perfume, nugget of gold. The dazzling stuff gets the highlight. Maybe, you know, when I do this with clients, I end up with about, 8 or 9 pages of notes. So I go through the 8 or 9 pages of notes with that highlighter, and the highlighted pieces will tell you what must make the cut for the resume. The rest is 100% negotiable. You may be very emotionally attached to these items, but you have to be willing to let them go if they don't belong there. Don't spend too much time trying to be capable and qualified, although we must meet that standard. Don't forget to also, though, include why you're interested, what makes you tick, which could have something very closely to do with what you do professionally, could have nothing to do with what you do professionally. But interesting and tick gets you to the 2 reasons, assuming you're capable and qualified. Can't make you that, but if you are, then it comes down to 2 reasons for being hired in almost every case, no matter what the role. Number 1 is chemistry above all other things. How are you interesting? What makes you tick? And number 2 is confidence in you above all other things than chemistry. And that's before the credentialing, the background, who'd you actually work for? What did you actually do? What did you produce? Interesting and tick. So don't forget to include that, even if it's part of your non-work life story. An example might be, I think it was probably now about 4 falls ago, but about 4 end of Octobers ago. I was just wrapping up a client's resume and LinkedIn renovations and last little bit of touch up. And suddenly my client goes, I'm about to be a 4-time marathon runner next week. I'm like, whoa, what? You're about to be a 4-time marathon runner? This is the first time John's hearing about it? Well, that doesn't have anything to do with my work. It doesn't? Seemed like you're getting a little mature to me. What does a 4-time marathon runner communicate? Energy, drive, unstoppable, really headed toward those goals. Oh, probably really good on my healthcare costs. I have to tell you, behind the scenes, I've heard them talk about it all. So let's not forget to market the entirety of what you are and who you are. So all of these notes about you, elements of your brand are mixed in there. You're going to want to go through and figure out what really separates you from others. Not makes you just the same, cookie cutter perfect. What makes you special? So whatever doesn't get the highlight or doesn't get the super extra attention, sorry while I grab a little tissue here, the rest of that content, I'm going to have to take and filter through one singular lens. That lens is something I use throughout the entire series, and that is what is going to rise to be the right element to convince them that it's the very best business decision they'll make today if they choose to hire me. If they saw this, that will begin to help you understand what parts of the story to pull into focus. Now, I was hitting the head with a brick, just like that, at one of my lectures at the New York Public Library a few years back, giving this lecture, in fact. And even if you haven't seen me before, I think you get a sense from my energy, and I'm well caffeinated and all those things, and I'm passionate about what I speak about. You can imagine after about a 60 or 90-minute lecture at the library, I have a lot of adrenaline going on. And so a person comes up and they said, well, I've been told all I can expect is more of this. I'm like, what is it? and I'm under the lights, all this energy, and right away I start to fall asleep. Oh, that won't be very nice. I better ask a question to stay awake. What do you want to do? Oh, I'd love to be in events. I'm like, oh, good energy. Have you ever done events before? Ouch. Let's see if we can make this a little bigger. Ouch. It says, I'm me, by the way, with my whole background. And I can't see it says events coordinator. All I see is impressive law firm. Oh, law firm. Oh, more law firm for you. Yeah, that's what this person's getting. They see a law firm. Oh, you're a law firm person. That's all I can think of you as. All right. So this version of the resume doesn't work very well. Even if we zoom in, you realize it really doesn't work very well. You still think of the person the same way. This is the exact same resume. This is the exact same resume, and much of this story exists within those big blocky paragraphs you just saw. But what we did was we took away all the minutia. You also realize, if you're looking closely, there's not a piece of sentence structure here. If I'm reinventing a resume for one of my clients, there's not a single sentence anywhere on that resume. Why would I have a sentence on a resume in a world where people no longer read? Not even logical. So you realize sentence structure is not necessary to absorb story, to think of you as the very best one. What we have to do is put all the elements that they would want to get from an events person. Oh, events planning, photo shoots, did events at the Heller Gallery, at Guggenheim, Lincoln Center, at Met. Oh my gosh, those are all A+ venues. You'd be hired tomorrow if you had those things on your resume for events, if they could see them. You're going to have to go through a transformation, this metamorphosis that we talked about. We're this product, and as much as we don't like that concept, would you rather be the store brand product? You know, the label coloring is always a little bit off. The taste is always a little bit off. Well, price is very good. Price is very good. But everything else a little bit off, a little bit off. Or would you rather be the Kellogg's, the Folgers, all of that, practically reaching off the shelf and slapping you in the face as the brand? Which brand would you like to be, and which brand would you like to have the revenue of? How would you like to create the engagement, which is a lot closer to this type of engagement than the mechanical type? Again, small changes in how you tell that story change everything. I encourage you that if you try this and you can't do it on your own, reach out and we can work together. I am very good at reinventing story. Now, personal branding is everything. That includes how I decide to carry myself or decide to dress, all those kinds of things. If I showed up here in my athletic gear because I was out doing some cardio earlier, I don't think you'd listen to my opinion. You know, we have to meet the expectations, everything, including dress, that could separate us out. Well, let me take these a little larger, and I'm going to throw some darts, essentially, at a few resumes I pulled off the internet. This is simply so you better understand what does not work, so that when we look at what I'll teach you, you begin to connect the dots faster. So Kelly here, kudos to Kelly on his or her brand. Big name. I figured you didn't need Kelly's last name, so I pulled it off there. It kind of stretched across the whole page. Big, bold, it's in your face. Absolutely. I can't miss the brand. Now, I'm not sure shades of yellow was really a great choice. You know, hard to look at on screen. And when I print it out, it's shades of gray. And that's the last positive thing I have to say about this resume. This resume suffers from something that most resumes suffer from. And that's a complete failure to consider information architecture. You know, think of any reasonable sized building. You just can't throw that thing up there. You have to plan the electric, plan the water, plan every little thing, and structurally can it all hold together. You have to make every decision that everyone ever might want to make with that building and make it still work. So in terms of a resume, what if they were only going to read 30% of your resume? No. For you, it's only 20%. No, 15% for you. Which 15, 20, or 30% of your resume do you want them to read? Because that's your choice. Here, I don't know whether I'm supposed to start down the column and go down to the bottom, then top over here. Am I supposed to go across? How's this supposed to work? You have mere seconds, and the information architecture on this one is all messed up. Let's look at the next one here. Julia, I think I could probably come a little bit larger here. Does it make the resume too much? Oh, the resume is a little smaller. Let's just keep it large. Sorry about that. So Julia here, I didn't write these comments down at the bottom, but it says, who said the name had to be at the top? Anyway, well, I'll say it. The name has to be at the top. Subtitle of my book is Changing the Rules. Change any rule that does not work for you. This is not a rule that you cannot, this is a rule you cannot change. What are we expecting with a resume? Name, which is right dead center at the top. What are we expecting next? Employer title, employer title, employer title. We need 2 or 3 of those highly visible for time relevance of your skills. And then quickly to your education. That's a reverse half moon across an entire stack of resumes. And Julia violates that. Now, I like violating the rules if there's a purpose, but now with Julia down in the middle here, I don't know whether I'm supposed to continue down in the bottom, go back to the top, creates an information architecture problem. And I also cannot see Julia's employers. Now, you might go, well, John, they're blurred out. Absolutely, absolutely. That's not, I don't mean literally I can't see them. I mean, I can't easily find them. I could go intellectually find them, but do you understand that your employers determine almost every single ounce of your value? Not your title. It's who you did that title for determines the value of that title. So the only thing I can really see here are the reasons I would not hire Julia. And dates are a reason I do not hire someone. Dates are never a reason that I hire someone. So while dates are expected, why would we have the dates right next to the eye path? Put the dates on the far right, as far away from the eyes as possible, and not bold and not large, and don't look here, even though we expect them. So think about those things. I'm going to come a little bit larger here because I feel so tiny in that window. So Julia's version there, that's not really going to fly either. Martin here, kudos to Martin on his brand. I definitely get it. Of course, I've seen this version of resume in many books over the years. It's out there in so many forms. I'm not sure it is worth spending 25% of your entire real estate to tell me your name and your contact information. Doesn't make a lot of sense there. Also, information architecture problem with these 2 columns, the blue column and the next column. Am I supposed to read down this one or down and over? How's it supposed to work? And all I can actually see is education, internship, and personal skills. And that's gimmickry. Gimmickry is pulling the eye. The story is not pulling the eye. We have seconds for them to be dazzled by our value, to understand that we're capable and qualified, but even far beyond that, to know why we're interesting, what makes us tick, why they must speak to us. It's all part of our personal branding. To put these 2 elements of your personal branding in perspective, that's LinkedIn and resume. Your resume is about catching or piquing the interest. Oh, get them in here. Get them on the phone. I have to speak with this person. LinkedIn is about taking that impulse and closing the deal, the rest of the story. So while I might have a single page resume, and all that's coming up to talk about as well, how do I take that skeletal system of the resume that presents the essence and value of my career on that single page? Now, how do I take it to LinkedIn and develop it into a full out 3-dimensional sales brochure? All of that in tomorrow's lecture. Hopefully you join in. It's really, all of this is about influence about who you are, why you're valuable. You can hit them in the head with this kind of brick, which leaves you to have to do all of the heavy lifting in every bit of the conversation to try to position and sell yourself. Why was I different? Why was I special? So this process is about adding clarity at the same time you're influencing them about you. So clarity to the story, clarity to the clear career path, but you got to influence them on the value of everything that you brought to the table. And that's what this kind of distillation of this blocky story format that we've always told into a more absorbable format, one that can be absorbed within seconds. Because today, creating engagement is about how the narrative quickly stacks up in the brain. Let's jump fully in. Here are all the secrets. 5 steps to create a winning resume. Coming back to each one of these, you are a product 2. Resume, the new definition, coming back to every one of them. Resumes, goals, and what those might be. Understanding stacks of resumes, that's when you hit that darn button, what happens. And understanding the 3-second resume test. Back to the beginning, you are this product 2. When a company chooses to hire you, they're buying a product, or at least they're buying your time and talents. We get all of that. So we have to think about how we want to position and sell all of that. And we're going to have to start on the resume. The new definition of resume, oh, you're going to need a lot of ink. I hope you're ready. Are you ready to write this one down? A simple sales sheet. that creates desire. Now, I was up on stage a few years back for the first time. I think I did it 4 or 5 years with Reverend Jesse Jackson at Rainbow Push Wall Street Project. And I was invited there with 5 other career coaches. And I gave my 11-minute talk first. We each got 11 minutes plus a roundtable Q&A. I'm like, oh, 11 minutes. What can I do in 11 minutes? Quite a lot, actually. So I had about 40 slides just running in constant behind me, and I gave a motivational talk. And I had talked about resume's job is to create desire, spark, have them jump out of your chair. And the very next coach that came up to speak takes the podium, and she goes, oh, resume that creates desire. Oh, how interesting. Well, when I was reinventing myself, I think the book is still in print. I'm like, well, what? When you're reinventing yourself and you think the book is still in print and you think you have something relevant to say. Simple sales sheet that creates desire. We can't get stuck in the past. Your resume's goals, well, its mission in life is to deliver the interview. If your resume is delivering the interviews for the positions you're after, likely you don't need to change it. If it's not delivering those interviews, something has to change. Now, the way it changes, it's a clear, clean, straightforward format. This is a format where the information itself is put together in such a way that whatever is most valuable to the decision maker can just be absorbed. Of course, clearly have to inform by educational value and background. That's part of it as well. Now, I'm just sending stacks of resumes. Now, if you don't follow my advice and lots more advice on what I strongly recommend for a full job search in tomorrow's LinkedIn lecture, the secret there is I prefer you don't click and apply online. I'd rather you get right to the decision maker, and I teach you how to do that tomorrow. So tune in. But if you don't follow that and you do click apply or submit, what happens? Well, you're basically going to go, your resume is going to go off toward a gigantic black hole in space called the data warehouse. If it reaches that, kiss that resume goodbye. Not very likely to return here. But on the way there, it's going to stop in front of a person. Oh, there's my chance. Resume is going into 1 of 3 stacks. Maybe the first one is, oh, there might be somebody in here. Might be. That is the good stack. Or maybe stack 2. Maybe have to come back and take another look. But they don't come back and take another look. They have a whole incoming river of new resumes. Why do I go back to this stack that couldn't quite convey their value to me the first time when I have all new exciting people to look at? Stack 2 becomes a dead end, just like the stack 3, the thanks but no thanks stack. Your job is to get your resume into stack 1. Now, the secret you may not like in this whole evaluation process is the timing is very short. It's literally 3 to 5 seconds per resume. I have a stack of resumes, 3 to 5 seconds, boom, boom, boom. You're in one of those 3 stacks within this amount of time. Your first goal is you must get that resume into stack 1 or it's never actually going to be read. Never actually going to read your cover letter unless you get it into stack 1. Never very likely to read your email unless you get it into stack 1 because there's just too much volume. Part of getting into stack 1 is being the right length, and that's a single-page resume in every case. I see that you see that I would not be a happy camper if suddenly someone wants a 2-page resume. Now, giving my LinkedIn lecture over at the New York State Department of Labor a couple years back, I happened to mention resume because these 2 marketing documents about you are related. And I said, well, resumes, single sheet of paper in all cases. And this guy in back flips out. He's like, oh, come on. What if you've been a CEO and you got a 30-year career? It's never going to fit. I'm like, take a breath. I don't think that reaction is because you don't like my answer. I think that reaction is because you find yourself sitting at the Department of Labor going, well, how did I get here? How come no one can see my value? Of course, not a surprise. This guy hires me. He sends me his stuff. It is 6 pages of my eyes bleeding. I cannot get through it. It's like, holy Christmas. CEO and COO before that and CFO before that. 30 years of endless career that he just can't stop talking about. It's an editing problem. Once you have that kind of background, almost just the skeletal system of your journey is impressive enough once you reach that rarefied air. Most of us are not up that high yet. So yeah, single page in all cases. If you need a 2-page resume, you have a confidence issue. That's a separate issue than a piece of paper. What are we looking at on that single page? Well, we're looking at the name, which is your brand. Looking at your current or last 3 employers and titles. Don't mishear that. Yes, I'd like to see them all. We're looking at the current or last three, so I know time relevance of your skills, and of course, educational background. Now, every time you work on your resume, you're going to do a 3-second test. So I've worked on my resume a couple hours. I now bring it back to the original, put them side by side. What's better, what's not. Now I pick it up and I do a 3-second test. And this 3-second test is very interesting. I'm going to pick it up and, well, why don't you pick up your resume right now, but don't look. I'm going to teach you how it works. Now, when I say to look, go ahead and look. And when I say to stop, you have to have been reading this person that you don't know, that's you, of course, and only within the time frame tell yourself what you can absorb about this person. Go ahead and take a look. And stop. And I gave you the full benefit of the doubt. For those that didn't have the resume we're watching, that was 1001 through 1005. You are never getting longer than that. And you're in one of these 3 stacks. So let's go back each time to the drawing board, 4, 5, 6 iterations to refine the resume, get this story clearer. How else can I restructure this? I object to objectives all of the time. You know, objectives, objective statements, all those things of what I might like to be someday. Nobody really cares. I mean, I care, but nobody really cares. So why don't you replace all of that stuff at the top of the resume? Sometimes it gets clouded with core competencies, highlights of my achievements since childhood. We don't read a single word of that because we know what you're trying to do. Why don't we just simplify what you're trying to do so it's effective? And that means replace all of that stuff up there with something I call a positioning title. And the simplest iteration is 4, 5, or 6 words that somehow make me think of exactly who you are as a product, as a potential hire. In a more complex background, it could be 2 or 3 lines of 4, 5, 6 things, but it's absorbable. It's something that doesn't have to be read. It's not a brick in the head. Even something like this, I zoom in and I still get hit, but look at the difference once we simplify it. High energy events planner specialist. Well, my gosh, that's what I'm looking for. Why did we need all of the rest of that? Or take a look at this one, which is angled 3 different directions: campaign director, medium PR, or community liaison. By the way, this person's held all 3 of those roles in the past, but certainly other ones coming up have never held what's up at the top of the resume. This is one I'm going to show you as we get a little bit further into today's lecture. I'll dissect how we accomplish this, but this person is a software sales professional, but not in the last 15 years, but they'd like to segue over to that. And this is how you begin to hijack their brain to tell them what you're after, and then we're going to have to prove it down in the text, and even if it's 15 years ago, and we'll show you that in just a minute. So through this whole process, the real work is going to be in the clarification, making sure you're not using words that are not advantageous to you, coordinating. Oof, sounds so low level. Or my duties, I facilitated, I maintained. Ooh, terrible people that like are standing at the stove stirring the pot. We have to change things so we have the right consistency, the right language, and everything just sings. By the way, even in this presentation, this law firm is still quite impressive. I mean, there are law firms. This is a law firm. Money. All right. So that tells me a brand value for your events. And if you've done all of these events at these major A+ venues, again, you'd be hired tomorrow with this version of the resume versus this wall of text where they just think of you as a law firm person. And somehow your job is to work through this until the clarity comes through and all the minutia disappears. Or we can go back to the brick in the head version, which really doesn't work very well. So I recommend getting to this clearer version that is going to be much more functional for you. And it's going to deliver you the interviews that you're really after. Now, don't be so worried about your age that you cut off valuable background. This person cut off Martha Stewart Living because it was 1993. I'm like, I don't want to show the 90s. I'm like, you know, you're still going to have to walk through the door at some point, right? They're going to get a sense of your field. That's not too long ago to cut off in this person's case. Or House Beautiful Magazine, where they did an event at the Guggenheim, or European Travel and Life Magazine, where they did event-related things. So we may want to truncate the background at some point, but don't truncate too much. Promise you the story behind this one. Very interesting. Guy comes to me from the Carolinas. He's been, at the time we worked together, 11, 12 years in contract furniture sales, like 1,000 desks type thing. And now I didn't know Price Modern as a brand. Hayworth, certainly I know as a brand. The only thing you see here is corporate office furnishings. Well, other than those couple brands. Previously was sending out his earlier resume and people are like, well, but I don't need a furniture salesperson. Why are you talking about furniture? Talk about everything that's dazzling about it. Achieve $50 million cumulative sales to date. Ranked top 10 in revenues every year since 2002. Build a strong pipeline. This is every single thing that would make the sales manager jump out of their chair and then look at what we did to the top. Accomplished sales professional, software, hardware, services. Just what I'm looking for. Well, Price Modern is certainly not software, hardware, services. But originally, they've been in the role so long, their entire resume had become Price Modern. So we shortened Price Modern down to a super paragraph that you see here, which allowed us to expand the 15-year-old experience that was too old or thought was too old to sell, where suddenly we could show software, hardware, services. And of course, that's where they're working again. Now, this is the bottom of a resume. I want to teach you a few techniques here. Yes, there's a whole resume above this, but if you do decide to truncate, you might decide that you might want to cut a little bit here and there. And so where do you start or stop the story? Well, in this case, we decided to start or stop the story, depending on how we look at it, in 1999 with EDS, Electronic Data Systems. Now, if you don't know EDS, they're one of those employers. EDS hired you? You must be fantastic. Sure. Every field has some of those, finance, it's Goldman Sachs. No matter what we think, it's Goldman Sachs. So a stunner. But look at those prior employers. We have 3 prior employers. 2 of the 3 prior employers also rise to that same stunning level. Kaiser Permanente and PwC PricewaterhouseCoopers both have the same reputation. So all 3 within one eye shot. You have 3 crown jewels all within one eye shot. But those 3 prior employers, you'll notice that there's no dates listed. Those cover 17 years of extra background. Anybody need to be 17 years older next time you interview? Not too many of us, a few of us, not too many. Also, I want to point out that's 3/4 of an inch on the resume. Everything does not have to be large and in your face to work. It's kind of like putting together a very fancy dessert. I can have the fancy dessert on a gigantic plate and drizzle all sorts of things back and forth. And then I can put a little sprinkling and then a little cherry on top and who knows what on top of that. So Electronic Data Systems is 10-point bold and sizing is coming up. But I want to point out that the other 3 prior employers are probably 8-point bold. Titles are probably 7.5-point bold. Locations probably down to 6.5, very tiny. And yet 3/4 of an inch with the right spacing, you realize perfectly absorbable, dazzling. They will never miss them. Let's talk about the very, very bottom. I do like to split the bottom of the resume, single page resume. There's no other efficient way. I want you to notice there's 3 universities here, but only 2 of them are treated the correct way or the way universities are treated. That's because 2 of them are degrees and 1 of them is not. Something that is not a degree does not get treated the same way as a degree. Now, if this were your field, you're probably jumping out of your seat because you're seeing that PMP, tattoo it on my forehead. I get it. I know what the PMP is, the cell piece here. But it doesn't, excuse this language, it does not trump the degrees. Therefore, the degrees are treated just like employer title. And then the PMP is subservient to the degrees, just like a cherry on top of that dessert. I am very sure they'll never miss that PMP. Now, if you're so enamored with your PMP or any other acronym you may have, there is a way to cheat it and get it to the top. You could simply put John Crant, comma, PMP, CPA, or whatever else the acronym might be. Community involvement, absolutely. I need them to think about the fact that I've been so busy contributing in my work life, and I found a way to get back to community as well. Solving resume issues requires this paradigm shift in both, as I started out today, both the story and the format. We've talked a lot about having to work through the story itself, but we've got to fix the format. So let me give you some sizing here. Your positioning title at top, that is the part of the resume always meant to change. Always the job that you're after, dead bullseye, whether you've ever held it before or not. If you've not held it before, it'll be very clear it's not listed down on the resume. but you're presenting yourself as qualified. So there's no misrepresentation here. Your employers and titles, your employers are 10-point bold. Notice that the comma, location, and date are not only not bold, they're not 10-point. In this iteration, they're 7-point. Skip the first one because there's an extra special line we'll come back to, but let's look at Salvation Army and United Way, the employer title setup. After employer, before title, I like 2 points of space. We'll show you how to add that space coming up. After title, before bullets, I like 4 points of space, and we'll show you how that comes in what's coming up. Title line, now a mistake people make is they'll make it bold. Oh, that's my title, make it bold. No. Then your title is fighting with the brand at all times in the brain. Your title has to work in harmony with the brand. So titles go a half a point less than the brand. That way it stays subservient to the brand. The brand leads the story because that determines the value. And also it goes italic to draw attention. So it works in harmony without causing disruption. Tissue, sorry about that. Talk about that special line, Good Samaritan Village, nation's largest non-for-profit. If the person sitting next to you does not know this brand, you must define it. Now, in this case, I spent a lot of time in Florida. Part of my years growing up were in Florida, 13 years there before I escaped, which always causes people to joke when I say that. Every second or third mobile home or trailer park in Florida ends in the word village. Therefore, I can't possibly have someone make that mistake going, great career. Oh my gosh, your career went into the toilet. What happened? Can't have them make that misstep. This is the nation's largest not-for-profit long-term care organization. It's another significant employer. If the people sitting next to you don't understand who the employer is, you must define it. If you need to define it, it's 8-point, 2 points afterward before title. Now, bullet points. Bullet points are all 8.5 in size. 8.5 in size. You can do the whole, each bullet point set all at once. Scroll over, 8.5. It's going to get a little tight, a little hard to read. While it's highlighted, we're going to fix it. We'll add space in between. Still going to show you how to add the space coming up in visuals. It's 1.75 points of space after every single one of those. Now, in case you're wondering why I'm so specific, before all my recruiting background, yes, I ran a pre-press service bureau, which means I really do understand line, type, and space and all of that and how it affects. So you can have as much variety as you like as long as you make this rule list. Every title is handled this way. Every employer is handled this way. Every location is handled this way. Lots of variation as long as you stick to a rule list. And then people will go, I don't know, it just works. It just flows into my brain. I can just visualize your career. Thank you. Yes. Contact line, not stacked up like a layer cake, eating up valuable real estate, but a single line. That single line should have your LinkedIn profile on the left, because honestly, if you're holding my resume, you should be so convinced, just call my phone number on the right. If you're not quite convinced, almost there, click on my LinkedIn to help close the deal with my full sales brochure. Let's talk about adding space. Now, there's 2 types of adding space. We can add space between the lines. We can also add space between the characters, and sometimes we have to do both. If we're adding space between the lines, now here's where I have to make an apology for Microsoft, which has so many versions of their software out there. This is what my version looks like. So you're going to have to absorb the concept and then go search for this function under your version. So in my version, I go up under format, down to paragraph. When I get there, this box pops up. I simply go to the points after field and I enter the 2 points or the 4 points or the 1.75 points. And magically, those things just spread out just enough to return the readability. Now, sometimes, like with your contact line is going to be too long. Well, how you handle the contact line is to make it 7-point. Yes, 7-point. And it's going to go just like this, crunched, unreadable, still highlight it. And now we're going to fix it. We simply go up under format. Now we go down to font. And when we go down to font, suddenly we get this fonts window. We're going to switch to advanced. And now you can realize you can either expand or contract your character spacing by 1, 2, 3 points until that 7-point contact line spreads out across the entire page. And even at 7-point, once it spreads out, completely readable, especially if you're wearing glasses or if you don't need to wear glasses. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 iterations. Don't stop too soon. I realize you may want to stop on the first or second try. Oh, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Probably is. but it could be even better, open more doors if you do a little bit more work on it. Work pedigree. You may get the 3 to 5 seconds of the resume, probably not quite getting how we're evaluating. We're looking at the quality of those companies, right or wrong, titles and accomplishments, even though I said I wouldn't read your accomplishments, and educational background. Here's the proof. Honestly, world's simplest resume, Todd Smith, Nestle USA, Director of Quality Assurance, Kraft Foods, Director, Quality Assurance Manager, Coca-Cola Company, Quality Assurance Engineer, University of Florida, BS in Agriculture. If this is all that's on the resume, I guarantee it's the world's simplest resume. And yet everybody watching this has some idea of Todd's value. Oh, I can get career progression from engineer to manager to director. And oh my gosh, these are 3 amazing companies, three great companies. Aren't they? I always love that when I have a live audience, because someone will go, oh yeah, those are great companies. I'm like, how do you know? Great brands, sure. You know, I've got a close friend who's been a long-term client of mine who's worked for GTE Internetworking, which became Genuity, Nokia Siemens Networks, Liberty Media, Level 3 Communications, Cisco Systems, Motorola Solutions. I can tell you every one of those organizations are absolutely messed up beyond belief, an entire eternal meat grinder situation of chewing up and spitting out their employees' parts. Are these any better? I don't really know. I didn't work food and beverage. Probably have some of the same problems. There's very few superstar companies out there that operate in the way we think. And yet this is how the decisions are made. Oh, you must have learned everything or what not to do from those amazing brands. So this is the value of brands. If you promote yourself up to the manager having to hire this person, but you have one interview spot left, you have Todd here and you have somebody else, Todd and somebody else, one spot, who's going to get it? And on both of them, you see the same engineer to manager to director, same University of Florida, BS in Agriculture. But that other one did it for 3 food and beverage companies you never heard of. Is it Todd or the other one? Todd or the other one? There's no question here. Todd gets this interview every single time. That's the power of the brands. Hopefully you've connected those dots, and if it's within your power, you only move to better and better brands, never equal. Better and better brands every time. It changes your brand value. Value everywhere, but nowhere to be seen. You saw a resume with nothing on it. Where you're going to lose that value now is in those achievements you put under that employer and title. So make sure they're as tangible and specific and deliverable as possible. The dollar signs, the percentages, focus the story on things that affect performance. Those are things that I could hire and expect similar performance, and then make sure that translates over onto your resume. Degrees of degrees. Have you received in hand your college degree? I learned to ask it that way as a recruiter when I realized people were lying to me. You know what 3 credits shy of a degree is? No degree. You know, I didn't pay that $168 I still owed. You know what that is? No degree. What matters? The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you didn't receive your college degree, then put the university in there and put your coursework toward field of study, but not coursework toward a BS and whatever. That is too close to the baloney. You cannot be caught misrepresenting anywhere, but especially not on education. Designing your resume. What I'm talking about here is moving your brand forward by helping them visualize your career path, your involvement, all the things that are exciting about you. Of course, I have to explain about educational background. A last word about Word. I have no special love for Microsoft. I would. I'd love them if they wrote great software, but really they write some of the worst garbage on the planet. And Word is the perfect example of their lack of eternal follow-through. It's been around forever, and yet they've never bothered to fix it. They just spend all their time trying to figure out how to get you onto a subscription model for a basic word processing program. Doesn't even make sense. If you spend all the time to make your resume perfect the way I told you to, and then you dare send a Word document to someone, you have no idea what it looks like. It could look very similar, could look like a completely different animal. And that's because the preferences file that tells it what to look like stays as part of your computer. Arrives on my computer, opens by my preferences file, which could be very similar to yours, could be a completely different animal. So when you're all done making your resume perfect, check out my Headless Horseman video over my YouTube channel and understand how to convert it over to a PDF. No matter what software creates it, convert it to a PDF, works in every single applicant tracking system out there, keeps your product positioned and lit and staged exactly the way you'd like. Wherever you are in reinventing your story, reinventing your resume, working on your career challenges, take your first step and learn how to repeat. I'll be here all week this week at 11 a.m. Hopefully you can join in for ones that you can take live and come back and see the ones that you can't. Please do like, comment, share, no matter which platform that you're on. Tomorrow, I'll be back at 11 a.m. with my Building Your Professional Career brand with LinkedIn and how to use that for our job search. We'll take you through all of that. And maybe just a few secrets on cover letter tomorrow I'll share with you as well. And a little bit up on screen here for today. Thank you guys for joining in today. I really appreciate it. And if you need help, don't hesitate to reach out. I care deeply, but I'm not emotionally attached to what I create. That allows me to create the best version of your career materials that will open doors that people can rarely do for themselves. If you need help, check out the Self Recruiter website, check out my services tab. And if you need to talk before knowing which package is right for you, just reach out and we'll set up a time to chat. I'll reach out by email, by the way. Thank you guys and have a great start to your week. Take care.